are the allowed to what you're saying?
No, we have rules that they adopted, and that's why we have them. So
what does your rule say?
if you want to speak, please take either 3 minutes, or if you represent an organization, 5 minutes, and then let the next person go.
I am speaking, but am I allowed to ask clarifying questions about the process?
What other questions do you have?
The question is, what's the process? So it seems to me that you may have stepped out of the norm by allowing comments to be made about the Charlotte Beach Carousel. Am I correct in assuming that? Have you done this before? Yeah. You haven't?
No, we haven't, but we have rules for our proceedings. So your 5 minutes is running.
So how do you put those rules in effect to something that you've never done before?
Because we have those rules for all of our public meetings.
And what do the rules say about being able to speak without having a petition?
They say that you have five minutes if you represent an organization, 3 minutes if you're speaking for yourself.
And that, the bylaws that you're looking at?
Yeah, I could give you the bylaws if you want. I could give you a copy. You can give me your email.
Oh, you don't have a copy right now?
I just have my own copy.
So this is what I'm thinking. And Howard, how do you feel about giving what you wrote to people and everybody reads with 5 minutes of your speech? I don't believe that any of us could do the justice that you're doing.
You mean this justice? Don't you want?
This will all be provided to the members of the board. Are you through, ma'am? Okay, can we have the next speaker, please?
You know what you're doing up there. What you're doing is put a bridge in a block at the same time. I see this is going to make this more difficult than what it is. Yeah. You took a step too far already. That's right. And all we're doing up there is lying.
Ma'am, if you can speak into the microphone, give your name and address.
Okay, my name is Patricia Mannix, and I live at 129 Presque Street, 14609. What I want to address, but first of all, I had sent a letter about the evil of this picture in a place that is supposed to address entertainment, especially for children. And for a young black child to see a picture like that when they're there for entertainment would just be pain beyond belief. And it also will encourage racism to continue when white children see black children depicted this way. But that's not what I want to speak about now, because I heard something here tonight that really upset me. The gentleman sitting next to Mr. Seegers, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, made the statement that no application had been submitted. And I just want you to know that for the past month, we have been trying to find out the process to get this taken down. Who was in charge? Who did the responsibility lie with? And what was the process for this application? We were totally unable to get a straight answer to this. We got shifted here, we got shifted there. This person said, we don't take care of it. That belongs to the county. Oh no, the county says that belongs to the city. And back and forth and back and forth. And I can bring all those emails in and show them to you. And so we were unable to put in an application because we weren't told where to put it in and how to do it. And I think that that's pretty, for you to now state, we don't have an application. Well, let me tell you, it isn't for lack of trying.
Let me just clarify, explain the process. We need to have the operator or owner of the facility present an application. And so, in this case, the city, please don't interrupt. The city is the owner, but under a 100-year lease, the county is the owner for steps into the shoes as the owner. And only the county can institute anything like changing the carousel or renovating it or anything else. So only they can put in an application to do this.
I know.
And I'm sorry I didn't make that clear to you sooner.
Listen, don't try to bamboozle and hoodwink her and ignore what she says. Had we known the process, then we could have been pressing the county to do an application.
Okay, here's what
You don't respond to any of those emails. So don't try to, explain away the fact that you were unaccountable and irresponsible.
Okay, here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to say about that. For you to sit there and say to me, the county, have you ever tried to send something to the county? Does the county have a name? Does the county have an email? An address? You can't have a dialogue with the county. And that was what we were up against. Before we had Mr. Secret's name, it was the same, it was the city. So if you could tell us who the person is that we would have to bring pressure on to have them make an application to you to get this taken down, we would be glad to do that. So you have your process, but you sure keep it untenable.
If I could just address that a bit, and Tom is right about this. We've got a situation here where the county operates most of our parks in the city and holds in the parks. And we can think about Seneca Park and the zoo, for instance. Now, Seneca Park is a landmark property, homestead design. Highland Park is another. They're both city landmark parks. But the county operates these parks and has since 1964 under a long-term agreement with the city. So we really don't have the involvement in it. For instance, the expansion of the Seneca Park Zoo hasn't come to us. The work in Highland Park hasn't come to us because the county is a different level of authority. So when we say we own the parks, we do, but we don't actually operate anything in the parks. So I'm sorry, just to run this through. This
It's just like a house. We're going to bring it right to the house.
And Mr. Seegers, I would just like to say, I understood this the first time it was put out there. I understand how the county and the city work with the parks. I knew that going in. That is not answering my question. My question isn't a how or a what. It's a who. Who is this mysterious county figure we need to approach?
You can find out on a phone call.
But I don't understand the mysteriousness of it. There's the county parks department that operates all of our parks.
And they have to do with landmark decisions? No, they don't.
Well,
They have to do with mowing the lawn.
but again, this board doesn't have authority over the county. This is a city board. And
I understand that, but who at the county do you take these things up with? If the county had a property that was solely theirs, and it was a landmark property, who would be the person that you would talk to about any kind of change to that property?
yeah, the county.
Who's the name? The name?
It's a good question. Yeah, the county doesn't have a preservation board.
Oh, okay.
The city does. The city, and truthfully, and I see smirking out there, but the city is.
If you want to know who's the director of parks for the county is Larry Staub. But so if it's up to him to decide what he wants to put in an application.
So the director of parks would put this in?
You'd be the first person to check.
Okay. Thank you. A name, Larry Staub. Thank you.
So let me just finish this. So this board was pleasant enough to take comments, but it doesn't have authority. It's interested in the concerns of the citizens, but this board doesn't have authority over the county.
We need somebody that can do something. We don't need artificial figures in this county anymore.
Well, it was
spoke to Gen 10 News 2 weeks ago and said this exact thing, that the county has put in that application.
Yesterday, a city spokeswoman said that the board would hear comments in the article yesterday, and would even engage us. I thought we were going to have some discussion around this. I thought we wanted to be educated.
We're going to hear comments.
You don't know the historical context, and it seems like you don't care. If that's the case, then you're feeding into institutional and individual racism.
And that's what I'm going to get involved. I'm not going to let it go any further. Enough is enough.
My name is Shirley Thompson. I'm a resident at 65 Carousel Street, 14621 here in the city. Pat Mannix already addressed the comments I was going to make about the seeds that get planted in children's heads and adults when they see the kind of caricature racist art depicted on the carousel. So I'm not going to repeat her comments. And it's apparent that we're addressing the wrong body. If you listen, but apparently we have to speak with somebody in Mr. Starr's office in the county. So what I will do instead is leave with you flyers for an upcoming community summit on race. This community is trying hard in many pockets to address the individual and institutional, sometimes unconscious racism that still pervades this community. And so at the summit in September, on September 26th, we're trying to bring as many people out as possible to begin to unpeel all the damage that has been done in this community and continues to be manifested in this community. It'll be an opportunity for people to sit and talk and listen to each other and learn about how we got to where we are in terms of race in Rochester. And the hope is that it will inform our individual, institutional, collective decisions about how we make this a community that works for everyone, from something as simple as removing racist art to larger issues that affect every single one of us in this community, regardless of your ethnicity. So I have flyers here, and to whom do I give them?
Make sure you come to the race and education work group. You get a good education.
Yeah, I just wondered though, I mean, I think there's going to, Bonnie Kinnean, I live at 66 Mulling Drive, just co-chair of the Green Party, which just as a note, the Green Party finds this whole issue of continuing with the depiction of the carousel to be such a violation of social justice, which I think we all feel is about democracy, so to us it should be removed. The thing I wanted to ask though, if probably there'll be more clarification over the jurisdiction, but are you not able to consider a strong support statement collectively that would go to the county to remove the depiction?
What they told me is, right, is that once they receive the application, they actually make the decision. Right? That's what I heard you telling me.
That's right, when we get an application. So what the Preservation Board, to be fair to any applicant, has to take testimony but not take a position until they have an application in front of them. So you understand, so to be fair to an applicant on all sides of the issue, they have to hear all sides before they make a decision. They can't come out and support one side or one before they hear all the evidence and hear an application.
Who has to come down? You actually make the decision on that, right?
If you don't open up this thing door, we're trying to close.
Or you don't want to answer that question, sir? It's just a process question. After you hear all the sides, and you collect all the information, and do your homework and study, then you make the decision. Is that correct?
I can answer questions from other people if you want to stay after, and I'll talk to them. Please allow the person who's up at the podium to speak.
Are you afraid to say this publicly? You don't know what you're doing? Or the measurement right now is too
allow them to speak.
I don't know the truth. I think he wants the same thing too, as the rest of these folks in this building.
My name is Stephen Jaros. I live at 34 Woodland Road in Pittsford. I work in the city. I'd like to, and I'm a blogger for Unite Rochester through the Democratic Chronicle on issues of race and disparities and racial inequities. I also have been part of a group that, through the Rochester Public Library and the Friends of the Library, to create conversations on race so that there is more dialogue and understanding, so that people leave with a wider lens than when they began the conversation. The concern that I have is that I hear that the Preservation Board in the city of Rochester does not have the authority to make determinations on the Denzel Carousel. However, it seems to me that there would be nothing to stop the Preservation Board from making a statement. There would be nothing to say to keep you from saying, even though you don't have authority to rise to the occasion. This is, I think, what Bonnie Canan was alluding to as well, that you, as representatives of the city, where a majority of the population represent people who are non-white, and so in a sense, they are all depicted in that panel. And by absence, so are we. So my concern is that we are all responsible, and we can all rise to the occasion, and on principle, the members of the Preservation Board could go on record of saying, this panel needs to be removed, and it needs to be replaced. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Fink. I live at 139 Red Line Road in Henrietta. And I want to share my personal encounter at the Carousel. About 12 years ago, which would make me 53, 54 at the time, I took my granddaughter and a friend of hers down because a friend of ours had just installed the wrought iron rail that is around the carousel, and I wanted to see his work. So I'm on the carousel with them, and I look up and I see this image. And I have to turn my head so they don't see me crying, because I didn't want the kids, who were at the time about 8 years old, to see what I saw. So it's not just about children, it's about our history. And having people who think so little of us that they make fun of the way our body is made, and extreme character of it. And so the history lesson that Howard was trying to share was just to give you and the councils over here an idea of what we have endured through the years. I can't imagine going to any city in the South and seeing the signs that I saw in the 50s at water fountains that said white only or colored only. They took them down. There is no reason that Rochester thinks that something that is degrading to people should be left up with a note saying this is part of our history. We don't do that. We should be bigger than that. And I ask you as a board to remember everything that you've heard tonight and think of your own ethnicity, because every ethnic group who has come to Rochester probably have suffered. If you go back to when your people came off the boats, have suffered some type of discrimination in this city.
I hear at Kodak that when the Irish came, they were discriminated. They weren't allowed to work at Kodak. When the Italians came, they were discriminated. They weren't allowed to work. There's a history that we have that we need to not embrace, but to say we want to be bigger and we want to be different. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Stevens. I live at 363 Drumcliff Way, 14612. It's in the town of Greece. Every morning I drive down to the park and walk. It's my daily exercise. I don't have any children or grandchildren, so I really have never taken an interest in the carousel. So I just learned about the thing, reading it in the paper. And my opinion is it's totally inappropriate. It's very much like the Confederate flag issue. It has no place for the public to see it now. It belongs in a museum, so I would, anybody that has the ability to deal with the situation, I would urge them to do so. Thank you.
Folks, we have applicants that have arrived for the earlier hearing. So I would ask, is there anyone that would like to wrap up tonight from the carousel or have an additional opinion? Howard, you have something else to add?
I have something to add.
Howard, do you have something else to add?
Yes.
Is
Yes,
there
I have something else to add.
Is there anyone else who has anything different to say?
So as these,
Well, then why don't we just take the other applicants and, if you would, since we allowed you all to come first.
No, you told us we were going to have to wait till 9 o'clock, so we're up now, that's fine.
Well, we have applicants.
so as these entertainers, these minstrel entertainers are traveling around entertaining racist white people, they laugh like crazy, but it didn't stop there. Of course, the industrialists had to get in on the game. We know just as today, they had their hands in nearly everything, especially where money was concerned. So the industrialists, decided to routinely display those thoroughly dehumanizing images on commercial products via packaging of products such as flour and meal, rice, and sugar, and whiskey, and medicine, and of course, the famous pancake box. They created postcards and lawn jockeys, etc. So clearly the idea was to intentionally perpetuate. You want this history, that's how he just doesn't want it. You want it. I can tell. I can tell you. Okay, so the idea was to perpetuate these disgustingly negative, stereotypical, dehumanizing images and myths about black men and black women in as many ways as possible. And let's not forget the children. The children were given their own special designation as pickaninnies. And to think that some D&C readers thought that Miss Rafka had made up the 17th century terminology. Actually, if we study the etymology, the etymology has to do with the origins of language and so forth, of the term, we would find that it originated earlier than the 1800s, roughly in the 1600s. But it became popularized during the Jim Crow minstrel era of the 1800s and was always, from the start, a thoroughly negative and dehumanizing concept reserved specifically for black children. So let me conclude this mini history lesson by counseling you that if you truly want to understand racism with regard to the hateful image on the carousel at your lot or any other form, you will never gain a clear, comprehensive understanding unless you place your examination into historical context or historical perspective. And please remember that. That's important. If you want to understand fully and thoroughly, you will necessarily have to concretely connect historical, social, economic, political, and cultural realities to current overall social, economic, political, and cultural conditions. Overall conditions that you see today relative to race or relative to anything, but we're talking about race tonight, did not fall from the sky or roll in from the sea or grow from the ground. That is, the conditions are not natural. Instead, they were created and have been maintained and are being maintained via intentional, social, economic, political, and cultural engineering, period. You usually shorten it by saying policy. Policy, racist policy, such as one that would allow that to remain on the carousel. Now, having placed this particular issue into historical context, let me tell you, as a local, state, federal tax-paying citizen of African ancestry, and remember that's a public entity, it's paid for with tax money, and as a parent, and an educator, and as a member of Facing Race and Equity, Race and Education Action and Change Work Group, I am deeply offended. We are deeply offended. And more people in this city are going to be deeply offended as they find out about this. Most people in the black community don't even know about this yet. And I feel that our ancestors, our children, grandchildren, generations yet unborn, are disrespected, dishonored, and dehumanized by continued public display of garbage, pickaninny, so-called art, such as the foul, thoroughly racist depiction on the public carousel at July Beach. When I found out about the existence of the racist garbage, so-called art, I was reminded of the fact that there was a time in U.S. history when some savagely racist white supremacists were so inhumane that they produced postcards depicting African American children being literally used as alligator bait. I'm not making this up. This is historical reality. Just as some later produced postcards of black people being hung from trees, and in some cases burned alive, do we also want to place those images on public display so that we won't forget our so-called history? If you want to ensure that we remember history, put it in a book, put it in a museum. I know some of you might say, well, there's a reading problem in the city school district. Put it in a book. Yeah, that's another, well, it's not disconnected from this. We have to work on the education system, of course. But certainly, children can see the same images if you want to display on a public carousel in a book, in a museum. So, I'm strongly, in fact, vehemently requesting that the garbage art on the public carousel at July Beach be immediately removed and placed in a museum or historical archive type setting. Perhaps, I'm not saying this because you're in the audience, this is in my notes. Perhaps at the Frederick Douglass Resource Center, if they will have it, if you'll have it. Or at U of R's Rare Books and Artifacts, Rare Artifacts section, or Strong Children Museum, in that order. And our suggested permanent location. But with the museum, the Children's Museum, you have to be careful. In any of these places, you still can't just hang this thing up. It needs to be used as a teaching tool. And the person who's doing the teaching may need to be re-educated. Because you can miseducate people if you don't know this history. And so, it can't just be put on public display. Lastly, I believe it's important to point out that even the great-grandson of the man who created the disgustingly racist garbage art, and who still, according to the PNC, they've been reporting a lot of stuff wrong. They reported this initially, that he still runs the business that his great-grandfather established. he has said that he has no problem with the despicable image being taken down. He was quoted in the DNC as saying this, even though I saw a letter that came from him just before coming here, and it seems like he's backtracking because he's done some more research. But here's what he was quoted as saying in the DNC initially. It's kind of like, if reasonable people in the community really think something like that should be addressed, then change it. Put in something that looks great and authentic. I'm not a real big fan of revisionism, but I do understand that we evolve and that there are certain things that push buttons. Perhaps if something like that does happen, there should be a permanently placed small photograph and a note about why that was done. It shouldn't just be dissolved into ether, just disappear. We do want to stay aware of who we were, I would say who we are. I think the community needs to get together and decide what they want to do about it, but they need to come to a consensus on it. You people are going to do the right thing, I'm sure of it. This is the great grandson of talking, and I think he's right except for no small image. No images, a plaque saying that the people came to the preservation board and demanded that it be taken down. That's the history that you want to teach future generations. Yes, the plaque would be nice. And so, thank you for your immediate attention regarding this volatile man. Now, I'm not giving away any strategies, but I'm just telling you, if you don't act, we're going to turn up the heat. And this could get ugly. And it doesn't make sense. That's coming down. It's coming down. And so, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I hope it was helpful. This is an overview. This is barely scratching the surface of the history that I would expect you would know and appreciate as a preservation board. You guys can come on this board. How can I apply to be on this board? I think I need to be on this.
All right, go.
I promise I'll be quick.
All right.
My name is Carly Fishgold. I live at 156 Pinnacle Road in Rochester. I'm a vernacular architecture student and I study history. I originally came here because I felt that the panel should be taken down but left in its cultural context with information regarding the history of taking it down and the reason why it was taken down. And I've changed my mind since I've been here. I still think it should be taken down, and I think that the panel should be left blank because I don't think revisionist measures are a good thing because for generations to think that it was always just something else doesn't help remind people why we need to progress in maintaining social justice. I think it's important to acknowledge the history, and I think if this is a piece of property that belongs to the city, then the city can give it to maybe the Memorial Art Gallery with specific terms in its donation for how it's displayed and how it's historically depicted so that people and children in this community understand that this wasn't just always a happy place for everybody. Nathaniel Rochester purchased this land we're standing on using the money from the people that he sold. And he brought 10 slaves here to drain the swamps and to clear the land. And that's our history. And there's no real monument out there. There's no material thing that teaches people that anywhere that I can think of. It's not public knowledge. And it shouldn't be something that's just an afterthought. It's who we are. It's who we all are. And taking that down is respectful. And leaving it up there is horrible. I mean, even Native American people, look at the Washington Redskins or the Cleveland Indians. They still are just pretty much ignored completely. This would not be happening if this was, I mean, there's all kinds of things all over town. That's not the point. But anyway, I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I represent myself. I'm not part of anything except for just me. And I love this city and I really love history. And I don't think that it's right to leave that up there. Thank you.
My name is Barbara Lacquer. I live at 260 Woodside Place, 14609.
I didn't come here to speak tonight originally, but I've been very disturbed by the process of the proceedings. First of all, I don't understand why we're even having a discussion about this. Why is Rochester in 2015 having a discussion about taking out a racist image? I don't get that. This is our Confederate flag. This should not even have to come before this board. But since we were reminded that we might have to sit here until 9 o'clock to hear discussion on this issue, I think that the process is what has bothered me even more tonight. That, you know, everyone sitting here and authority is white. A black man comes in to tell you the history and is continually shut down, try to be shut down. And I think that is, you know, for white people to say, well, these are our rules, you know, that's white supremacy, I'm sorry. And, you know, I just think you need to take a look at yourselves in terms of what are you trying to perpetuate here, trying to shut this discussion down. Thank you.
I'm probably the most black historian out of this whole room. My name is Asa Adams. I'm a Black Panther Party, not the new Panther, the ones that are gonna die. We created things that the government uses today in programs, at least 65 of them. I lost a lot of brothers and sisters. And a lot of them fought for you guys to be on that board. And these folks would be sitting out there. And listening to her reminded me of the bullets, the arrests. Something this man need to learn while he's sitting there playing with his pen. Yes, my brothers and sisters died and he was still there too. You're part of me. The Black Panther Party was never about race. It was about unity. Get it together. I want to try to teach you something that you was truly ignoring. I don't want to ever be in your shoes if you ever die. Because the pain you're going to feel, you're going to pay for it. But as for this panel, you guys got to get it together. I had another thing in mind that really hit you on, but I would love for this panel to speak out loud about that piece of art that the city does own the property, because guess what? While I was talking to you and you was talking to me, I was texting your books. The city does own that property. Now, if that was my house, and I had put a Confederate flag up in my house and painted it that color, the city would maybe come and take it down, wouldn't it? Even though it's my house. But the deal is, if it's your property, get it done right. Because if you don't, you're going to have a major problem that's going to really hit this city. Like they said, a lot of the black community doesn't know about this. And I'm beginning to see why. You don't want to wake up the sleeping few, to wake up the truth. But history is the most powerful thing that we need to not forget. I do agree. That piece of art needs to be put in a museum with a lesson with it. And I see like all you now seem to be getting to get the idea of what's going on. But do the right thing and make it stand out loud. I'm tired of fighting. I don't want my children to go through the things I've seen. I've seen the hangings. I've seen the bombings. I've seen the dead bodies. Something none of you have no imagination of. I just wish the dead could come back and tell you. They'll talk loud. And I think they're talking now. Take it down. Get rid of it. Put it in a museum. Best place for it, the Memorial Art Gallery. Typically a charade. But my brother, who came back
to work with us at the Resource Center, thank God, dragged me out. We all know it's a very racist language. Last year we had an exhibit that was called Identity Assignments. It ran for 8 weeks. It talked about the origins and the backdrop of imagery such as that does in fact, as a few of the speakers said, does in fact plant cognitive dissonance in our young babies. You can go to any so-called school in this city and see the type of cognitive dissonance our babies, black and brown babies, are wrestling with today. I also would quickly say that I totally agree. By making a logical, basic, fundamental step in addressing that image in some form of fashion is not just good for Rochester, and it would actually be precedent setting in the nation again, depending on how you step that out and stage that out. I'm sure you're going to do it, because as a couple of the brothers said, it's going to come down one way or another. I know everyone knows it. That's why we have 3 security guards in the building expecting, right? Last but not least, well, not last, but next to last, the city owns the property, but the county runs the property. Correct? Okay. If the city wanted to close it, does the city have the authority to say, you know something, I think we want to close the Carousel? Does the county have the authority to say, no, you cannot close your Carousel? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, under the lease, the county has committed to run it as a public park. So if they stop running it as a public park, then we get it back right away and get all the authority back. So,
Okay, so you own it. Just
but we don't have any authority except that they have to run it as a public park.
understood.
The county has to. Yeah.
Okay,
So if they stop running as a county park, then the lease is over, we get it back free and clear.
very good. I understand that. I'm familiar with those types of things. Third, does the Preservation Board have any leeway or any room, parameters to work with the city school district to help improve historical context or information sharing? Since you basically have access to just about everything historic in the city, there's multiple racist images throughout the city and other things that I could mention, but have you considered previously or through this process a way to connect with the city school district to talk about this particular issue? No. Well, if in fact you haven't, I would be more than willing to assist in that endeavor. We have documentation and books at our Frederick Douglass Resource Center, and we don't need the imagery. We have many of them. You can give it to the Moral Art Gallery to make money off of, which is pretty much what's happening, like all other black and brown historical information. But we would be very much willing to work with you to force this to be a teachable moment. If you're willing, we would do that. You have our contact number. The city attorneys know how to get in touch with me. Thank you for your time.
All right, we have some anxious applicants to get back on track here. I thank you for your comments. I think the board and all of us learned a lot tonight. And Howard, we have your whole document here.
Yes, I think.
Clear it is, thank you.
But it's still weird. I think the ordinance is off track. Yeah. We're off track. We're on track. We're right. It's like we're some extra process.
Well, no, you're on track, certainly.
Okay, so you didn't mean that, did you?
No.
Is there any, you're not gonna have any discussion with us again, so are you gonna, do you want to have any discussion with us? Have any questions? Would you like to have some questions?
I think if anyone would like to stay to do so, Howard, after we address our other, I think we have 4 applicants waiting. If anybody does want to stay. So we could, if I can remember where we left off, is anyone here for 10 Menlo Place? You are, okay. Can you just come up and talk to the members for a minute?
would like to make a statement. I want to thank everyone for coming, and this has been very informative for myself. I can't speak for everyone else on the board, and we would certainly do what we need to do if we have an application, and I understand you've had problems trying to make that happen. I'm assuming that that will be able to happen. So thank you very much.
And you're here for 10 Menlo, and I understand Joe cannot attend tonight.
Correct.
Okay. So board members were in 10 Menlo Place. Any questions for? All right. Okay.
Where are you at, Peter? I'm sorry.
10 Menlo Place.
Would you want to just give us a brief description of the application or project?
Certainly. It's just going to be a wooden shed in the back corner of the lot that will be painted inside just like the house. And then a picket fence similar to all the other ones on the street. Just two sides. One side is already taken care of by the neighbors. And I have pictures if anybody wants it.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. Jason, do you have any questions? No questions?
In the backyard, I noticed that there were some red wood things that looked like they were kind of steps that went up into the park.
Correct.
Is there going to be a gate or anything back there, or are you just going to cut that off?
You mean in front of the steps, will there be a gate?
Yeah.
Still debating. I mean, for the permit, we were requesting to go on both sides, and there would be a gate in front of the steps, but after we make our final decision, we might only do the one side and not even go all the way across. But there would be a gate if it went across.
Okay, so this indicates that this material that we have in front of us, that there would be a full fence across there. But you're saying, which kind of makes a little sense, is that you're going to have some type of a gate that's going to be there, so you can get to the park in your backyard.
Correct.
Okay.
I had a question about the height of the shed. How high is it going to be? It didn't really show on the application of the area. Is it 7?
Yep, 7-foot sidewalk.
That's my only question. Thank you.
I don't have a question right now.
I don't have any questions. No additional questions. Thank you for the presentation. You can just take a seat and we'll open it up to the public. If anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or opposition of the application, please come to the podium. Seeing if no one wants to speak, we'll close the public portion and members will discuss and vote. Jason?
I'm glad that she's thinking about a gate back there, because I kind of felt like I was
made and properly seconded. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, including a gate at the rear of the, thanks, Mike. Maybe we should second that again.
Second again. The motion has been made and properly seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Can we just take like a 5-minute bathroom break, please?
Preservation Board. You filmed the whole thing. You're going to put it on YouTube. Great.
It's still being filmed right now.
Great.
Put your hand in there.
So what do you think?
It's coming down.
Filming this in stereo?
Yeah, there's 2 streams going.
So one to Pandora and one to...
No, they're both going to Meerkat.
So the Strath Allen is on hold.
Well, I saw Jay here.
He left.
Wow.
So he's going to work with the Park Megs Neighborhood Association on further revisions. Coffee. Do you see Craig?